like Murder Row. It has interesting vibes and it kinda makes me want to play Assassination Rogue again. If you've played Rogue, Warlock, Demon Hunter or Mage, a lot of the abilities in here will be familiar to you. Before we can get to the first boss, we need to interrogate 4 snitches.
I just want to talk to him.
Why do you have a shotgun?
I just want to talk to him.
On your way to the snitches, there are 8 different mobs in this area. We've got the Bribed Guard and Bribed Captain. They both do a glaive toss, which damages the tank and puts a bleed on them before bouncing to other players. They also do a tank buster called Shield Bash, which increases the tank's physical damage taken by 20% for 20 seconds. The only difference between the guard and the captain, outside of rank and Hawkstrider, is that the captain has a deeply corrupt aura, which increases damage done by nearby allies by 25% and reduces their AoE damage taken by 25% as well.
Misery, 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 the whole flippin' way.
But there are more mobs to worry about, like the Fellworms that explode when they die, so murder circles on the ground. Felonious Mages, they channel Fell missiles for 5 seconds that damage their target every second.
Felonious.
These seductive warlock pets that try to seduce their targets. Row hooligans that say hand over the gold as they backstab their target and apply a bleed.
28 stab wounds.
You want to stack up a bit so that they don't fly all over the place. And we've got street sneaks and they apply hard stop poison to their weapons, which is a stacking poison that will reduce your tank's max health by 5% per stack, and it does nature dot damage. It is dispellable if you have a poison dispel, but looking at the current tier list, chances are high your healer or your tank will be a paladin. If not, take that poison totem if you're a shaman, and or pray your tank's heart doesn't actually stop.
Should we say a wee prayer first, maybe?
Yeah, I'd say our Lord is up there now, looking down on the world, thinking the floods and the famine can wait.
Before we get to the first boss, there's also a massive Fellworm. It does Corroding Spittle, a dispellable magic debuff that we'll see on the boss again. It summons tiny Fellworms, and just like any other Fellworm, it explodes when it dies, but the circle is room-sized this time. To save time, I park myself up the ramp next to the snitch, so I don't have to run to dodge the circle, and I can immediately interrogate the snitch. Moving on to the first boss, Kystia, Manaheart, and Nibbles. Kystia starts a fight with 4 stacks of Fell Shield, reducing her damage taken by 20% per stack. In order to damage her, you need to break her Fell Infusion into Nibbles by bringing Nibbles to 20% health. This will trigger Light Infusion, flip Nibbles to the light side, and it will stun and destabilize Kystia for 20 seconds, increasing her damage taken to 100%, but also causing her to pulse heavy damage on the group. This phase is ideal for healing and damage cooldowns. After 20 seconds, Kystia infuses Nibbles with Fell energy again, but she does lose 1 stack of Fell shield every time she destabilizes. The fight is rinse and repeat from this point on, but there are other abilities to watch out for. Kystia is basically an arcane mage that uses Fell magic, so she's got a tank buster called Chaos Barrage. It does heavy damage and then jumps to other players. There's constant damage in this fight. She also casts mirror images. You need to interrupt or CC these to get rid of them, and do it as soon as possible because you don't want them to cast Fellstorm. Finally, Kystia teleports to a random player and casts Fell Nova. Just move out of that. Nibbles does the same dispellable magic debuff as the other Fellworm, and it has this rotating frontal, which you can actually see now, thanks updated frontals. After the boss, Beleth Dawnblade will give you a sexy Blood Elf disguise so you can pretend to be a worker and bypass the long line and bouncers in the club. Inside is the infamous RP section where you have to do nightclub jobs like serving drinks, throwing out rowdy customers, and mopping up puke. You do this for 2 minutes or until you get a 5-star review. Not really a great addition in a time dungeon, but it does bring the vibes. Oh well, moving on. There are 2 new enemies in this section, Warehouse Workers and Keen Taskmasters. The Taskmasters will cast Back to Work. This increases the attack speed of the Warehouse Workers within 40 yards by 200% for 20 seconds. And there are 2 Taskmasters here, so your tank is about to get shredded like cheese.
What does that mean? What does fold in the cheese mean?
On to the second boss, Zaen Bladesorrow, and he's an outlaw rogue. This fight is all about barrels. Zaen will ask warehouse workers to throw barrels into the arena. Well, I mean, he will demand it. If you get hit by the fallen barrels, you will take damage and you get knocked back, so avoid green circles. One of the barrels will be Fell infused, so green, and it will pulse damage on the group. You can get rid of it with Firebomb, which will go on random players and explode any barrel in their circle after 6 seconds.
Beam!
The exploding barrels also do damage and knock you back, so move away. Zaen will also do Killing Spree, group-wide healer mechanics, and cast Envenom on the tank, which will do damage but also activate a juiced up Heart Stop poison, which will reduce the tank's max health by 30%. You'll want a Poison Dispel for this, or, a prayer. The big signature ability of the fight is Murder in a Row, where Zaen calls down barrels, one fell again, and then jumps away. He starts aiming his gun with scope on every player. Getting hit is no bueno because it's damage plus a 15-second bleed, so you want to avoid this. In order to avoid it, you have to break line of sight by hiding behind a barrel. If you still see a red skull above your head, you're not hidden well enough. Shooting the barrels also breaks them, so the fell one is priority number 1 again. And if you want to be extra safe, in the previous part of the fight you can only break the fell one, so you have 5 barrels up for this part.
3 for me and 2 for them.
Move away from the exploding barrels because if you get hit in the circle they knock you back and you can easily get knocked into the next circle and the next circle. We then go to the demonic side of the dungeon as we chase the warlock Lithiel Cinderfury to the end of the dungeon. Here we get a set of 8 new enemies and a mini-boss. Unleashed imps that constantly cast Fellfire Burst, trained fell hunters draining life, and demon flies dive bombing random players. And then we've got Siobhan Punishers that do a big whirlwind called Whirlwind, and they hurl Fellfire orbs, more stuff to dodge on the ground. They're also flayers and they charge random players and cast an enrage ability called Fell Rage, which reduces their damage taken by 60%, and makes them immune to CC for a minute. So, interrupt that or soothe. The Fell Invokers use an ability Warlocks will be familiar with, Health Funnel, which heals another enemy for 10% of its max health every 2 seconds for 30 seconds. However, this costs them 5% of their max health every 2 seconds. But the real trouble mob here is Corrupted Warlock. First of all, it's immune to CC, which makes everything else it does incredibly annoying, like Drain Life, which is exactly what it sounds like, and Dark Pact, which will give them a 35% shield.
All magic comes with a price.
They also cast Curse of Doom on a random player. You can tell who it's on by this ball drop of death visual above their head. If that fully drops and connects with the player after 10 seconds, the cursed player will take damage, and so will everyone within a 4-yard range. So, decurse if you have it in your group, but otherwise move away from other players. There's only one enemy left before the third boss, and it's this mini-boss called Fell Master Luxai, a demon hunter. And if you're keeping count of the mobs I just listed, we'll get to number 8 after the third boss. Anyway, Luxai does I-Beam.
Kalal, no!
You'll know where it goes based on this thick line visual. It's massive. And it also does Blade Dance, a massive group-wide ouch. Next up is this massive demon, Xathuux the Annihilator. That's hard to say. Once you attack him, he lights a ring of fire around the boss arena because the name of the game here is Space Management. Xathuux only has 4 abilities, starting with the most annoying one, Demonic Rage. He suffers 30% increased incoming damage, sure, but he also has 75% extra attack speed, and he gains Burning Steps for 15 seconds, which make him drop massive Fellfire puddles under his feet. And you can't stand in these without taking massive amounts of damage. You'll want to tank him around the edge of the room and slowly move him to allow melee DPS to damage, but not too fast so you flood the room with fire. Another reason to tank him around the edge of the room is that it makes it easier to face away the tank frontal Legion Strike, which reduces the tank's healing received by 80% for 8 seconds. Woof. Xathuux also throws a Legion Axe at a random player, which will damage everyone on impact within 60 yards, so there's no avoiding that, and will then start pulsing damage, so the goal is to swap to it immediately and kill it as fast as possible. You'll want to keep this close to the party. Finally, he does Infernal Crush, which is a spread mechanic, and then everyone gets an 8-second fire dot. Spreading this properly will become harder later in the fight when the whole floor is literally lava. Before we catch up to Lithiel, we have one more enemy to deal with. Defiled Golem. This is a very annoying mob, especially for positioning, and there's one at the end that might not even be skippable. Its main abilities are Defiled Slam, where it slams the ground 3 times for massive damage. You'll want to defensive the first hit and then move because the slam triggers explosion circles around you. Look at all these green detonations. The Golem also does Fell Beam, which chases all players and drops goop. Make sure you're not running your beam into other players or enclosing them, and don't let it eat you either because ouchie. And then we get to Lithiel and it's Demonology Warlock time, baby! For the healers, this fight has constant raw damage because she has a fell aura around her, kind of like the second boss of Misera Caverns. Lithiel summons a massive infernal that fixates a player, and you'll want to kite it away from the group because it has a damage aura. I've only seen it gone on tanks, but the ability text makes it sound like it could go on anyone, so keep that in mind. Lithiel also summons a Vile Fiend that you'll want to kill as fast as possible to keep your tank alive. She casts Chaos Bolt, which Warlocks and PvP players know that this is always a priority interrupt, and she casts Fingers of Gul'dan, which puts circles around everyone. You want to loosely stack these without standing in each other's circles, because the ability summons a bunch of wild imps. But the main ability of the fight is Malefic Wave. Lithiel jumps away to cast Malefic Wave and drops 2 demonic gateways, one where you were fighting her and the other one across the arena. While she's casting Wave, she has a Fell Shield and takes 50% reduced damage, which is fine because you want to kill all the demons except for the Infernal before the wave hits them, because all demons hit by the wave will gain 100% haste. But you don't want to get hit by the wave because you'll take a dot to the face and take 50% additional fire damage for a minute. To avoid the wave, wait until it's spread a bit away from the opposite gateway and then use the gateway to jump to the safe spot inside the eye of the wave. The fixated target, aka probably the tank, has to make sure the Infernal is not on top of the gateway when people go through it, but the good news is that it looks like you can AMS the wave line, based on scientific experimentation.
Yes, science!
And that's Murder Row, a dungeon packed with rogues, warlocks, demon hunters, and corrupted mages. Good vibes, but also debuff central.
I laughed, I cried a number of times, I sweat, I danced, I got a shot, I ate, and...
Thanks for watching.